Talk with Susan. I'm Susan Siegel, Yorktown Town Councilwoman. This is a program that's devoted exclusively to Yorktown affairs with a special emphasis on what's happening at the town board level. First, before we start, I'd like to remind you to register to vote. We have an important local election coming up on November 3rd. I'm not sure when you'll be watching this program, but you can register up until October 9th. Well, I should say whatever, a week from whenever, because I keep forgetting we're being taped. But October 9th, it has to be postmarked. You can download a registration form from the Westchester Board of Elections website. Go to westchestergov.com. Registration forms are also available at the town clerk's office on Underhill Avenue. And you could also have until the very end of October to send in an application to vote by absentee ballot if you anticipate you might be out of town on November 3rd, or if you have an illness or you're too frail and you don't think you'll be able to go to your regular polling place. So you have to first submit an application, and then the Board of Elections will mail you the actual absentee ballot. I also want to remind you that if you want to get in touch with me, my email address is susan@yorktownny.org, and my phone number at Town Hall is 962-5722, extension 421, and I'd love to hear from you. Okay. Today, I'm delighted to have my guest, Rick Pizzullo, the editor of the Northern Westchester Examiner.
Hi, Susan. How are you?
Hi there. And as always, this is totally unscripted, and I don't know what's going to be on Rick's mind, so go ahead and shoot.
Hi, how you doing, Susan? I know it's a busy time with the election, as you mentioned, coming up. Let me just ask you about that a little bit. Obviously, you're going door to door. You're talking to residents. What are some of the top issues that residents are bringing up to you as you ask them, about the town?
The biggest issue is the highway garage that they've been hearing about. And they've read that there's this $4.8 million proposed project. They kind of say to me, why is it needed? They're not sure. And they are concerned about its impact on their taxes. And my response to them is, while going ahead in the future, it might be of value to relocate the highway garage and put up a commercial building there, add something to our tax base. My question is now the time to do that? It's all about setting priorities. Our roads, as everybody knows, are in disrepair. We've had 2 horrible winters. We just haven't been able to spend enough money to pave them. We've had 3 emergency bridge collapses in 1 year. And when we do things on an emergency basis, then we don't go out to competitive bidding, so we don't get the best price. And we have our buildings, which are also suffering. They just haven't been maintained. So let's take care of our priorities first, and then talk about a highway garage.
With the highway garage, we know there's a petition circulating. I think it's up to about 2,000 signatures.
Yeah.
I know at the last meeting, I believe it was, Ed Safone came forward and said, I think they want a permissive referendum. I think that's what he was asking for. Is it too early for that, do you think? Or, since, I think I've heard you say there hasn't really been any plans presented, anything you guys to even vote on. Yeah. Is it too early for that, do you think, a permissive referendum?
Yeah. Unlike other states, I think California is one example. Okay, in New York State law, residents cannot ask for certain questions to be put on the ballot. Do you or do you not approve of something? Right. I think in Colorado it was the sale of marijuana. In California they've had things on gay rights and budget propositions. We do not have that in New York State. So the only time we can have a referendum is in reaction to an action that the town board takes. If the town board decides to borrow money, go out to bond, to build a highway garage, that would be subject to a permissive referendum. Right. But the town has taken no action yet. That would be the subject of that.
Right.
And then there are very special requirements for the permissive referendum. The signatures that the UTY has collected now would not be the kind of petition that would be subject to the certain required signatures. But it's certainly, with over 2,000 signatures, it is a very strong voice to say this community does not think we should go ahead with the project now. Again, it's not now. As I say to people, talk to me in 5 years. That may be the right time to do it.
Now, I know Supervisor Grace has felt strongly that this project will serve as kind of like to help downtown, to revitalize the downtown. And I know you've said that you didn't think that was really the location. But in terms of, let's say, downtown revitalization, what do you think the town could do, in the short term to revitalize downtown, the Heights area, which there's a lot of vacant stores and stuff? I mean, is there anything the town can do, with one particular idea, project, or will it require a lot of different things?
It's a lot of different things, okay? One key that we have no control over is the economy and the market, okay? It's not our property and we're not leasing it. So we've got to encourage, for example, the owner of the Yorktown Green Shopping Center to be reasonable on his rents for the Food Emporium.
Right, which has been vacant for how many years?
Many, many years. We could do something, my involvement with the Yorktown Trailtown Committee, okay? And this is publicizing Yorktown's network of trails, both hiking and cycling and walking.
Right.
And getting that word out to Lower Westchester, into Connecticut, up in Putnam, and the northern communities, to tell them, come into Yorktown. For example, you're passing the North County Trailway. Okay? You know what? You're hungry? We've got all of these restaurants here, or supermarkets. You need your bicycle repaired? We've got a place. You need some Band-Aids because you got some sore feet? We've got a drugstore, whatever you need.
But doesn't that tie into kind of what the supervisor's saying? Because the trail goes right past where the garage is now, where his vision for that building is. So doesn't this kind of all maybe play into what he's saying, that area? Is that really the area that you think is the center of the Heights area, or do you think the average resident thinks of that as downtown Yorktown?
It's not downtown Yorktown.
Is there a downtown Yorktown? What is considered downtown Yorktown?
There isn't. We are not like, I don't know what Yorktown was like in the 50s and 60s when they had the train station there. Right. And obviously, communities like Katona, Mount Kisco, they center around the train station, and then they build out. By the time I moved to Yorktown in 1970, the trains had stopped. In fact, they were doing urban renewal, in that area. So it's much better. I remember half the street had been cleared, and half the street were a bunch of shacks. Yeah. So we have significantly improved. But I would say Commerce Street, from what we call the Triangle Light at 202 and 118, going down Commerce Street, the YCC building. Yes, the post office used to be there, but it moved. That's kind of the center. The highway garage is on the fringe of the hamlet, the business area. It's the gateway to the industrial street, which is a very valuable street in Yorktown. So if you build a commercial building there, okay, half of the building, the way it's proposed, is going to look out over Yorktown Auto Body. Now, Yorktown Auto Body has done a nice job. They expanded a few years ago. It's clean looking, okay? There's no garbage outside, but it's still with a lot of cars and trucks, a tow truck. Right. It's not prime commercial property, okay? I certainly don't think I'd like to have a restaurant and look out on an auto body shop. Right. A doctor's office, an accountant.
What do you think maybe Yorktown should maybe inquire about the Friendly's property? Because that's kind of more the center of... is that something the town could even approach, like doing something with that site?
But it depends on what the owner is willing to lease it for. Okay, we've heard that the Yorktown Green Oster Realty is not very flexible with that. What the town can do is, if somebody wants to, if they want to split up, let's say the Food Emporium. Right. If Oster doesn't have a candidate, potential tenants for all that space, but they want to divide it.
What about that other, where Friendly's is? Because that's like in the middle of, that's kind of the middle of Commerce. That's right there. You go to the light there. Maybe whatever this building is that the supervisor has in mind maybe would fit better there, because then you're looking at,
Oh,
you know what I mean? You're
oh,
looking,
you mean the supervisor's building? Well, then the town would have to buy that property.
right,
But any private developer can purchase that building tomorrow, make the changes.
right,
You'd have to have lived here a long time ago to remember that it's where the bank, it's next to the Catala building. What's that bank? Wells Fargo? I think used to be I think it was that, a pizza place, a restaurant.
Yep.
I think it was
Yep, it
Lucy's Pizza.
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely. I remember that.
Totally
There's a
different.
movie theater also where CVS was.
Okay.
Behind there was a nice
So-
movie theater.
People buy property, okay, and then they decide to change it. If somebody bought the old windmill place
Right.
on Route 202,
Right,
I don't think that that's probably worth salvaging, so they would tear it down and put up something new.
right,
But that's we're a capitalist economy. A private person has to do that. The town isn't in the real estate business. Yes, we have the property where the highway garage is, and we can sell it someday and have somebody put up a building. But we'd have to specify exactly in some kind of request for proposal. We want either a minimum or a maximum of square footage. We want it mixed use or all commercial. We want so much open space. Right now, what the supervisor is talking about is just a loose concept. It's just absolutely loose. And we have no idea. And also, how can the town design a building and then say to you, private developer, here's this is what we want, you go build it, and you say, you know what? I can't market that building. It's not the right configuration. It's not the right size, okay? So I'm not going to buy it from you. Private developers know the market. It's up to them to develop property.
Right,
Okay?
right.
The town can make it available.
right. Speaking of property, recently there was a lawsuit filed by the neighbors of where the pipeline's going to go on Stony Street, and the supervisor came out recently and said, he thinks it's without merit. He's really just says it's not going to go anywhere. Do you think there's any validity to some of the claims that were brought up in the lawsuit? Whatever you can talk about.
There are three issues in it, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've done a little bit of reading, and I think there's certainly legitimate questions to be asked, and I had those questions when the town board was voting for it, for the license, and I voted against it. One is that Spectra needs to use some of our parkland on a temporary basis. They basically have to have area north of their pipeline for their construction equipment to work around. Okay. The town board, by a 3-2 vote, gave them a license to use the parkland. Okay. What the issue is, did they need to have either condemn the land, okay, or have it alienated by the state legislature, even if it's on a temporary basis.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So there's a question whether the license is legal. And that's the same issue that gets to the winery and how the town, again, in a 3-2 vote, allowed the winery to use town parkland, okay, at no cost, okay. Again, they gave a license, okay. There's some legal questions about that. Second issue is that the Koppel family is saying that the town did not follow the proper seeker, the environmental review process. For example, the license agreement calls for Spectra to construct a permanent road in part of its website. That was never reviewed by the DEP or the DEC and never reviewed by FERC because those plans were never in the original Spectra submission.
Right.
So that's a question. The third issue is Spectra has easements for the pipeline that go back 50, 60 years. The easements say, according to the papers that I've read, you can put the pipeline underground, repair it, maintain it, build it, and so forth. But it doesn't say anything that you have permission to put a permanent structure on top of the easement. Okay? So, again, those are three legal issues, and this is going to have to be worked out in court. My concern, though, is that while it's worked out in court, should the town use and put the $1.5 million into its 2016 budget?
Right.
That I don't know.
What would you recommend? Putting it in a savings for temporary just to see what happens, or
I think so.
Yeah.
What happens if you budget that use? And I have no idea what Supervisor Grace is planning to do with that 1.5. He hasn't shared anything with the town board.
Right.
So you plan to do something, pave the roads, for example, with $1.5 million.
Right.
Well, what happens if we lose the lawsuit?
Yeah, do you have to give the money back?
Well, if we haven't spent it yet,
Right.
but we've assumed that we're going to pave roads using that money, and now we can't pave the roads.
Right.
So it throws the whole budget process into a state of confusion. So I would say to be safe, and I don't know how this court case will work out,
Right.
and whether it will get resolved before we adopt the budget, which will be in let's say, mid-December.
Right. Now, I know that originally Spectre was planning to start doing work in October, which we're in now. Do you think the lawsuit will delay that work, or do you think, I know how the federal government seems to always supersede, local and stuff. So I don't know if that supersedes a lawsuit or not. I don't know how that works, but
I think that the plaintiffs may be asking for a temporary restraining order, because if you start cutting trees now, and then the court finds that the license was not valid, but the trees have already been cut down.
Right.
What do you do? So they may say you can't proceed. Okay. They had to wait at least until October 1st because of concern over a habitat for some bats. But they possibly could work into November or December. They weren't planning actual construction until the spring of 16.
Is the pipeline an issue that comes up when you talk to the average resident in Yorktown, or is it not really on the radar?
Some people, it depends. When I walked through neighborhoods where, for Atlantic Bridge, the second phase, that's the project that's going to go through many, many neighborhoods, and also legacy ball fields.
Right.
So along that route, some people are concerned. They've been in touch with Spectra, and as I said to them, I am not against the expansion of the pipeline. I just want to make sure that whatever is done takes into consideration the health and safety of those particular homeowners and their property, and also of the general town. So that's
Right.
my overriding concern.
Do you think that's been done? Like, they've had several hearings about these projects, and, people get up and say whatever, but do you think they're actually listening, or are you still a little bit worried about what could happen to the town?
Yes, I'm a little bit worried because a lot of what FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, accepted in Spectra's documents were very vague. They didn't quantify things. They didn't have specifics. Thankfully, the New York State DEC, which had to issue the wetlands permits, and the New York City DEP were because this is in watershed, Croton watershed, they were much more concerned and stringent about their requirements. So thankfully, they are watching out for us. Okay, again, I'm not against the pipeline. I just want to make sure that it's done properly with all of our environmental plus health and safety considerations.
Right. Okay. Now, we all know the type of season it is now. It's, the funny season, as they call it, with like the election about 30 days away.
Yes.
And, recently the opposition, so to speak, came out with some concerns about some email lists that were obtained by the Democrats for whatever purposes. What is your kind of take on what they're saying, that they were not used properly or they were used for solicitation purposes?
Oh, gosh. Here they go again. I think it was President Reagan who once said that. Here we go again with it. They keep coming up with these outrageous, charges and allegations that are totally false. They did it, 2-3 weeks ago? I think you reported it in your paper about a corrupt syndicate, charging the Democrats as being part of a corrupt syndicate and fraud, and they were going to go to the DA and all kinds of hyperbole, which turned out to be ridiculous. They also totally misrepresented the comments of the Westchester Fair Campaign Practices Committee, which said they were wrong to use those terms.
Right.
In this case, the Democrats were able, Councilman Patel sent out an email to his constituents, discussing the highway project. As everybody knows, he's opposed to it, as I am. So he sent out information saying basically the same things he has said in newspaper ads. He he used a combination of town email lists and he purchased some lists. As everybody knows, things can get purchased these days. Okay, the Republicans are crying foul. They're saying, "Oh, you invaded our privacy." Well, I think the Republicans don't know the law, or they plan to violate the law. The law dealing with the release of email addresses by the town is perfectly clear. As long as the email addresses are not used for commercial solicitation or for fundraising, you can use it. And what Councilman Patel was doing was exercising his free speech rights. Okay? He was just informing his constituents. I think as an elected official, I have an obligation to let my constituents know what's happening.
Right.
That's why we're here today, and that's why I do this show, to let them know what is happening, to give them some information. Okay, so they are making a big to-do about nothing. The Freedom of Information Law is very clear that these email address. This is the email list for people who have signed up to get the town agendas and public notices, and also the Parks and Recreation Department maintains a list. You want to know what's happening with different programs.
So these are people already kind of in the know, people that want to know what's happening in the town, and you're just sending out more information on top of what they already receive, in essence, right? These are people that want to know the agendas, they want to know what's happening.
That's right.
So Vishnu Patel used it just to let them know about this petition, I guess, is what his...
That's right.
motion.
And the majority of the email addresses that were used were purchased commercially. In fact, when the email addresses were requested using the Freedom of Information, the FOIL law, and it said very specifically that these are not for solicitation or for fundraising. And the town clerk, Alice Roker, sent the person the list the very next day. Didn't raise any questions because Alice Roker knows the law. So she just followed the law.
Do we know how many emails we're talking about here, like that were obtained, or are we talking thousands? Is it hundreds? Do you have any idea?
I don't know what was purchased commercially because I wasn't involved. That was Councilman Patel's campaign. I know that I was given those town lists, and after merging them and deleting duplicates and things like that, it came out to about 2,700.
2,700.
And I'm delighted to know that at least 2,700 Yorktown residents want to know what's happening in this town. I think that's excellent. You know, we're in the 21st century, right? Email is the way to communicate with people. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those other social media things that I'm too old to get involved with. But email is the way to communicate. And the interesting thing is its impact on the cost of campaigns and contributions. Let me make a linkage to you. When candidates want to have newspaper ads, want to do mailers to get the word out, that's very costly. And we have to go out and we have to solicit contributions for that. Okay? In the town of North Castle, they have been using emails. Both parties have been using emails for about 5 years to communicate with their residents. They did it after checking with the law. Everything is above board. Because emails are so cost effective, they don't have to raise so much money. And if you don't have to raise money from certain contributors, you're not beholden to them. So I think that's kind of an interesting fact. And I would think
maybe from a time standpoint too, like an email goes out in seconds. If you had to call 2,700 people on the phone, you know, and you're on the phone with them for 5 minutes, you're talking about a lot of time. That, you know, and then you probably have to. People are not home. You got to call them back. So I guess an email is a quicker way to, as you say, to get people. And I imagine people would probably rather get an email than a phone call. I don't know.
Oh, well, let's talk about robocalls.
Right.
Okay, the Republicans just love to use robocalls, and God, those are so invasive. I know I'm in one room, and the phone rings, and maybe I'm old-fashioned, but when the phone rings, I pick it up. I don't let it go to voicemail. And then it turns out to be, I'm would you like to have my chimney cleaned? But,
Right.
it's vote for me, whatever. I'm so-and-so saying vote for you. Those I find really intrusive. And a lot of people, as I go door to door, have talked about that. So to me, that's a critical invasion of privacy that the Republicans have used. I know in past elections, the Democrats maybe have done one robocall at the very end, urging people to get out to vote.
Right.
So I think the Republicans, when they bring up this issue, they just don't know the facts. They just don't know the law, and it's just another Republican dirty trick to try to cast negative aspersions to Democrats.
Now, are these emails something that you plan to use in your campaign before the election day for anything in particular, or?
It's one of the things I will use. In addition to making some phone calls, to me the most important thing is urging people to vote. The local election is the most important election for us. It's the level of government that impacts us most. Our taxes, our property values, our roads, our police services, our recreational services. In Yorktown, you've got, let's say typically about 10,000 people come out to vote in an election. Okay, much less than what votes in a presidential election.
Right.
There are too many people who vote in a presidential. My one vote gets lost
Right.
in the millions and millions of votes for the president. It even gets lost for a gubernatorial election, but it certainly counts on a town.
Right.
Town
Well, there's
level.
been many elections I know over the years where they've been decided by less than 10 votes.
Absolutely.
And then it gets real interesting.
I think last year in Rockland County there was constant vote counts because it came down to the onesies and twosies. So
Right.
every vote counts, and so I may use email to get the word out to people to vote. If I have a specific message, because I certainly have strong positions about open government, transparency, honest budgets, the highway garage, and I want people to understand that. And with email, the beauty is you can always click that unsubscribe.
Right.
You're off the list. With a robocall, which the Republicans use, you can't unsubscribe. So you keep getting those calls one after the other.
Are you anticipating a low turnout this year? What do you think?
I'm hoping for a huge
Are you
turnout. The candidates, the Democratic candidates, have been out, going door to door, trying to get our message out to the people. I don't know what the Republicans are doing. We want them to understand the issues, okay? I want them to, especially the highway garage issue, which I think is one of the key issues,
Right.
because that's big bucks. I mean, we're talking, big bucks on this. That will impact everybody. So I'd like them to, to remember, to vote.
I know you guys have at least one debate scheduled at this point, public debate.
We have just a few minutes, so just a minute. October 19th is going to be town board candidates, town clerk, and town justice. I think it's 7 p.m. at the YCC. Wednesday, the 21st, is going to be supervisor and the two county legislators, even though neither of them has an opponent. Again, at
Kind of
the
interesting that it's
YCC.
broken up this year, whereas I think 2 years ago it was all one night. So
I don't know.
I wonder if people will come out twice.
It doesn't make sense. I think it's a disservice to the voters to make them come out or to choose, because the supervisor's race is really as important as the town council race, because we have 5 votes and the supervisor's vote is the same
Right.
weight.
You each have one vote, in
as
essence.
ours.
Yeah.
So let me just close and thank
Sure.
you. It's always
Thank
a
you.
pleasure, because the goal of this program, I have to keep saying it, is to get information out to the voters. And contact me at susan@yorktownny.org or 962-5722, extension 421, if you have any questions, any comments. I try to respond to you as quickly as possible. And I know lately I've been getting some concerns. There's an issue up on Route 6 and other things. So that's why I'm here, okay, is to communicate. And I look forward to seeing you at the next debate.